Welcome to another Jew and Gentile podcast. I am your host, Chris Katulka, and with me is none other than the Jewish sage himself, the one, the only, Mr. Steve Herzig. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you?
That's the most straight-laced you've been for weeks.
I know. It's been an emotional month.
You're just fine now.
Well, no, I didn't say that. I said I'm doing great.
Okay.
Well, let's go with great.
Okay.
You know, remember the issue that I had?
Yes.
And then we were sad because of things we had to remember about the Holocaust.
Yes.
And so I was struggling with two different personalities, sadness and gladness and anger and happy, and now I'm just fine.
That was the most, I've known you for a long time. I've never heard you just go, great, call it a day. We can all go home now.
I'm good. It actually reminds me of a video of a young man that I've seen who, when his wife came to see him, how you doing? He said, I'm good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm good. Maybe he affected me.
Maybe he affected you. I wasn't expecting that. So I was caught off guard.
Well, maybe that's because we have another guest.
I know we do.
So I didn't want to take too much time, although that's what we've done already, talking about nothing.
Okay, before we get to our guest, who we're going to introduce here in a moment, Steve, a few things. I forget to tell people why this podcast even exists.
Very important.
I'm going to tell you, we usually do an hour-long podcast, and I am assuming that we lose most people, and so if I'm doing it on the back end, we've lost people right up front.
Well, the couple alone who are watching it before they go to sleep, I'm sure we lose them probably after Havenu Shalom Aleichem.
That's right. I hope that I'm sure that we don't put them to sleep. But I do want to say this, Steve, is that people have been commenting on our podcast.
Oh, man. I told you I was great. I might not be after this.
So if you like the podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts. You can rate it.
Even if you don't like the podcast, tell us why you don't like it.
Oh, well, okay, fine. But you don't want to lower the lower stars you get.
I want people to like it, but, good criticism could help us.
100%. But email Steve your criticisms. Don't put them on the pod. Then we lose our status.
That's right. I don't want to lose what status? When you're at the bottom, how much lower can you go?
Well, this is my newest favorite one that was posted not too long ago on the Jew and Gentile podcast for Apple Podcasts. Here's the comment. You ready?
I am.
It's 5 stars. That's as high as you can get. Big thumbs up. And then it just says, very Jewish.
Hey. You should know Jewish.
It makes me want to go to the highball for that one, Steve. How Jewish is this program? Fine already. Okay? Fine already. All right, the next one is 2 great guys, 5 stars. I enjoy this every week. These guys have a heart for Christ and the Jewish people. This is fun, deep, and
Fun, deep?
Fun, deep.
I agree with the fun. I don't know how deep we are.
And just a great mix of everything. Like an everything, I don't write this, but like an everything bagel, I guess,
Like the mishmash soup you get at a deli. They throw in the kreplach, they throw in the noodles, they throw in matzo balls, and they put it all together, and what do you got? Mishmash.
Bada bing, bada boom. I spoke to your wife the other day, and to find out if she listens to the podcast.
And
she said, you guys don't really discuss anything. I thought, oh, man.
I hear this at home every day. I need to listen special on a podcast?
Oh, that's right. She lives with the podcast. She has an eternal podcast going. Anyway, I thought that would be good for people to hear. Hey,
Chris, when you call, I put you on speaker.
Yes.
Normally. She hears the podcast. We're doing the podcast when we're not doing the podcast.
Oh, my. I have to go back really quick and also remind people that we have a new website they can go to where they can actually become equippers. That's right. Remember, the Jew and Gentile podcast is sponsored by FOI Equip. And FOI Equip is where you can go to learn the Bible from a Jewish perspective. If you want to discuss something, you need to take the classes. The classes are a great place to really dive deep into the Jewishness of the Bible. We have some amazing classes. In fact, we have a live online class happening tomorrow night. And this is a sensitive subject, Steve. It's sensitive. Antisemitism knows no party.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So we're going to get 2 parties mad.
We're going to get 2 parties mad. That's right.
But they might be mad, but they'll get angry. I should say not mad, but angry. Because they're going to see that it doesn't matter if you're red or blue. There are people on both sides who hold anti-Semitic views.
Yeah, there's no party that claims anti-Semitism. It's innate in the heart of man. That's the problem. And so it can be on either side. And maybe you're going, I don't know if I like this. I hope that you come to maybe just learn, be enlightened in some way. We're not saying you have to believe it. We're not saying you have to hold to everything. We have two great teachers that are coming in, two Jewish people that are coming in to share about what's going on with anti-Semitism politically. And so this is just a great way to be enlightened. You don't have to believe it, but you should just listen and take it as an opportunity to deepen your understanding of anti-Semitism. And so you can register for that class by going to our new website, Steve, foiequip.org, where you can become an equipper. And if you sign up, you get all the classes. You get all of the classes that we do online. And then you also get the notes that come with them and the slides. You can teach them in your Sunday school, your Bible study. They're all available. It's all edited down so that you can enjoy it with somebody and learn something about Israel and the Jewish people.
Does this have anything to do? Am I able to access covenant theology taught by Mike Stollard just a couple weeks ago with his notes? I think he had like 40 slides each week, like 80 slides total. I could get that.
You go on.
And no charge?
No charge, free. You just sign up, you become an equipper, you're in like a special program. It's like an educational program online where you get the online teaching, you get the slides that he's provided for you for free, and then the notes for free.
Amazing. And these aren't show notes.
These are not show notes. No, you do have to scroll down, like the button's there, but you don't have to scroll down like in show
Then
notes.
I'll find them. The show notes I'm still working on.
Hey, so be sure to not only subscribe to our YouTube page, FOI Equip, be sure not only to listen to the Jew and Gentile podcast, but become an equipper and find out more ways that you can get involved with Friends of Israel.
We've been ignoring Ben here.
I'm not trying to. We had to get people caught up.
You're ignoring the guest in the room. Let's get snappy here.
All right, we've got our great guest, Ben. How are you, Ben?
I'm doing fantastic. Listen, I've gotten to see the sun more than one time a year because as a Michigander, the sun is a completely foreign concept to me. And then as soon as I walk in the door, you guys are like offering me snacks and stuff, and I'm like, this is just great. And honestly, it's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Oh, Ben, fantastic. All right,
Chris, this guy's got a last name that's pretty important to Friends of Israel. I don't know. Should we sit down? Do we salute? What do we do here? This name is enshrined in the Friends of Israel's
legacy. It's legacy. That's right. So we have a former executive director. His name is Bill Sutter. And Ben, that's why I left your last name out, Ben, because it's Ben Sutter. And Ben comes from Michigan, but your great uncle is Bill Sutter, the former executive director, who you never actually even met until you came here.
Yeah, I only just met him in person a couple weeks in from going into this internship. So it was great to meet him. And really the first time that I actually talked to him was after the Winnoa Lake conference last summer. So I haven't really been in communication with him at all up until that point. Just heard a bunch of stuff from my grandfather, his brother, but it was great to be able to meet him and my great aunt too.
Chris, when I was eating lunch outside, several of the staff eat lunch on a regular basis. Ben is out there all the time since he started his internship, and it was his supervisor, Lisa Small, who then at that time said, Ben hasn't met Bill. I said, what? And I turned to Ben. He was seated right next to me, and he said, no, I'm going to meet him this Sunday.
Oh, that's amazing.
I said, Ben, you're meeting your great uncle. Now, I said, you got to report back. Is he a great uncle or if he's just a great uncle?
Yeah. All right. Hey, Ben, so you're an intern right now at Friends of Israel. You're from Michigan. So what college were you going to? What were you studying?
I go to Cornerstone University, which is in the Grand Rapids area in Michigan off of the Beltline. It's a Bible Christian college, so I've had some Bible classes kind of intertwined with it, but I'm a computer science major. I've got one more year left before I get my bachelor's, so that's pretty exciting.
Is there a sound or a sign or anything that Cornerstone students do? You know, if you go down to Texas and you see someone from University of Texas, you do hook 'em horns, you do gig 'em for Texas A&M. Is there any sound or sign that you all do?
I mean,
do you just plop down like a Cornerstone, or what do you do?
We just mostly are just Yay, Jesus. We don't
Do
really have
they have a mascot?
We do. We have Rocky the Golden Eagle, which is a really cool mascot. We don't have like a ton of chants or anything, but at the very least, our mascot and our logo is really cool.
So his name's Rocky?
Yes.
I just know Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great. Okay, did you play any sports there or?
No. I mean, I play racquetball from time to time, but that's just for fun. And I've played some intramural flag football, but I don't play any sports. Like I said, I'm a computer science major.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I didn't do much sports, but I did do intramural soccer when I went to Philadelphia College of Bible with Steve's sons, and I played intramural soccer, and I was known as Foxtrot because I would go into the corner to try to get the ball out, and it would look like I'm doing the Foxtrot dance. And so they labeled me Foxtrot. But that's great. So you're in college, you're studying IT, and that's what you're doing here at Friends of Israel. You're interning in the IT department?
Yes, I am. And also Lisa hooked me into the media department as well. Because just kind of off to the side, I've been doing some graphic design stuff just for fun. And I even helped a law firm set up a website not too long ago, develop that for them. I think in 2021, I want to say. So that's been great, too, to be able to do both of those and also kind of see how they connect and use both my creativity and my technical expertise in that.
That's awesome.
So, Ben, tell us, how's Friends of Israel for you? You walk in, you don't know that much about it. You know something about it. So it's been in about 5 weeks, hasn't it been about 5 weeks?
About 5 weeks. It was about I think a month. My month-in anniversary was like on the 5th, so like I think last Thursday.
Mm-hmm. So what are your impressions? What do you think?
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's been a huge blessing. Completely exceeded my expectations. My expectations were already high. Like, I've just really enjoyed being able to meet everyone. Like, everyone that I work with is just amazing. And everything that I do and like all the different things that I've gotten to do, whether it's, the IT stuff, the media stuff, I worked in the studio a little bit. I mean, it's just overall, it's a huge blessing to be able to wake up and go to work knowing that you're working for a cause that God has called us to be a part of, and that is in supporting Israel. It's just been fantastic so far. I've absolutely loved it.
Ben, I know from our conversations, this is not a political podcast at all, and this is not a political organization. We stand with Israel and the Jewish people biblically. But I also know you have a political heart. You like politics, and I get that sense. So when you hear me say that we're doing a class on anti-Semitism knows no party, what starts to run through your brain as a young college student who's politically, what's the word? Apt? Is that the word? Or apt?
Inclined, yeah.
Yeah, inclined?
Yeah, it's true. It's not like the entire conservative or liberal party or liberal party is fully either anti-Semitic or supports the Jewish people. Like, there are certainly people on both sides who either do or don't support Israel. I am a conservative, so I do think that the Conservative Party, at least kind of from what I've seen and from what I've heard, definitely supports Israel more than those who are heading the Democratic Party. Doesn't mean that everyone who's a Democrat is anti-Semitic by no means. But yeah, I mean, I agree with that statement. Like, it doesn't know no party. I mean, like, it doesn't matter what party you are a part of. Like,
so if you sign on tomorrow night, are you willing to? You're willing to open your mind to hearing what other people have to say?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm someone who I value truth. I value facts. I believe that there's only one reality, and if that reality might be against what I believe, then I better correct myself. But I absolutely think it's a great opportunity to be able to kind of open my mind more to different possibilities and kind of receive more information and factual evidence to either support or go against my political beliefs.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your testimony. You're raised in a Christian home.
Yeah, it's certainly, I actually kind of talked to Steve Conover about this a couple times, once in my interview and once recently. I was blessed to be able to be raised in a Christian home with two loving Christian parents. Shout out to my mom and dad, who are probably listening.
What are their first names?
Kim and Dan.
And your siblings?
My brother is named William and my sister's named Alyssa. We've been really blessed to be able to live in a Christian home. I was saved at a very young age, around like 4 years old, and then baptized not too long after. And kind of around junior high was when I was really starting to kind of really make my faith my own, and like starting to say, hey, I don't want it to just be because of my parents. However, I don't want to just write that off and say, oh, because my parents believe it, I shouldn't believe it either. Like, which I think many of my generation kind of falls into that rebellious phase. And I was like, okay, I just want to look into it for myself and really kind of build upon my understanding of the Christian knowledge. And it's really led me onto a wonderful journey. My grandfather, Bob Sutter, Bill Sutter's brother, has been a huge influence in my life as well in discipling me and really.
And what do you
helping
call
me
him?
Papa.
Papa.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's a huge blessing to be able to grow, like start that foundation with my parents, and they've really, they along with my grandfather and my grandma and have really helped.
What's your grandmother's name? We got to cover
Kathy
them all.
Sutter, yep.
There we go. We got them all.
All right, so here's the deal. You're an intern. What would you say to somebody? You're young. You're serving here at Friends of Israel. Maybe there's some college students. I don't know if there are or not.
It would be purely accident.
That's right. Who are listening. Is it worthwhile doing an internship at Friends of Israel?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's plenty, like, if you are passionate about the Jewish people, and especially after October 7th, if you just kind of want to find an opportunity to be able to use an internship in a way to be able to not only, gain the knowledge and expertise that you need in your field, but also to be able to serve the Jewish people. Friends of Israel is a great opportunity. They're very patient, very willing to help me learn. Like, I've learned a ton of different stuff since being here, and I've only been here for a month. So definitely, I would say it's very worthwhile.
That's okay. So you would totally endorse it. Were you always? Would you say you came into this internship an avid supporter of Israel and the Jewish people biblically, or do you feel like it's grown more since you've been here?
I think it's grown more, but I started as an avid supporter. I think that this internship has certainly helped me grow in knowledge of what's going on. Like, I follow Ben Shapiro, again, very political, but I followed Ben Shapiro's, just his coverage of like Israel, and I've looked into other resources as well. But Friends of Israel has kind of really helped push that a little bit further to be able to get a deeper knowledge of what's going on in the Middle East, the history of the establishment of Israel, and better understanding the biblical text of like why we should support Israel. So I would say I came in as an avid supporter, but I have certainly grown in my support and in the knowledge that I have of that area.
I have a question here. This is a generational one. I'm a lot older than you, not quite in your great uncle's age group, but not far behind. So as a conservative Christian young person, what are your go-to resources besides Ben Shapiro? What are the areas in terms of getting information and trusting the information? What do you look at?
So first off, of course, being a Christian, it's the Bible. And there's like a few other news resources. Like there's this one app called The Ground that kind of gives a lot of like, it kind of shows
slower. What was that?
The Ground, I think is what it's called.
The Ground, Ground.
Yep. Yeah, and it kind of gives like a very unbiased news feed and like, what's going on. It kind of shows the coverage as well from both parties, Republican, Democrat, and even independent, which I like to use. Just like, general resources, random information. Like I did a lot of studying on the Palestinian or the Hamas and Israeli conflict through a few different resources. I can't name them off the top of my head, but yeah, it's just, I would certainly encourage everyone to not only just focus on one resource that might be biased one way or the other, but also to look into it for themselves to better understand what's going on.
Do you have TikTok?
No, absolutely not. I don't want Chinese virus on my phone.
That's an interesting cross because you're probably unique for your age bracket to not want TikTok on your.
Do a lot of fellow students at the Christian University use TikTok?
Yeah, like most of them just don't really care. But I mean, if I really want the short form content, I'll just go to Instagram Reels, which Instagram isn't that great anyways, but the main thing I have against TikTok is everything kind of going with China. So
Yeah,
China.
That's why I love, you're an interesting cross section of your age bracket because most people, like you said, they don't care. Actually a lot of people for your age, even probably in the evangelical Christian world, are probably upset to hear that the government might shut down TikTok. They're more they'll go protest. Give me my TikTok. I gotta have TikTok. But you don't use that because you stay in tune with what's going on with the news, and you're a little more apprehensive, or I should say, very apprehensive to using that platform.
Yep. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, interesting. Well, okay, so Ben, here's the deal. This is the rule we always give people. There are no rules. You can stay, you can go. We're going to continue on. You can chime in. We'll leave your mic up.
Please chime in if you want to
Okay.
stay. But if you say, you know what, I've had enough of these guys. I'm looking at those two bobbleheads, and I'm saying, I got to get out.
100%.
I'm having too much fun. I'll stay on and listen to you guys.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, Steve, we've had so much that we've wanted to do over the past few weeks because we've been getting all this great
We were
information.
in Canada.
Everything. Every time we'd want to do something new would happen.
That's right.
But a few weeks ago, you came across a magazine while we were in Canada. It was actually last week, I should say.
That's right. My wife actually got this magazine going through a very Jewish neighborhood in Toronto because she wanted to go to a Jewish bakery. My wife's more Jewish than I am, and she's Gentile. I mean, she wants to know where the deli is. She wants to know where the bakery is. For me, you know.
I tried to show her the ultimate cafe because I know she likes cafes too.
Yep.
And so she's got that she likes the French way of life as well. Or I think I'm speaking truth.
She likes French culture.
French culture. That's right.
Yep.
So they're in Toronto, in Thornhill, which is the Jewish area of Toronto. There is a Israeli cafe that's kind of situated like a French cafe. So it's French, but then it serves Israeli food. And I thought she'd love it. It's called Landvers. But maybe next time we'll go there.
Yeah. So she did. Anyway, she brought back a couple of magazines. I'll turn it around.
Yep.
Pronounce it for everybody.
Ha-Mizrahi.
Okay. And what do we know about the Mizrahis?
Well, there's several different types of Jewish people. The Ashkenazi.
Hello.
Yep. Hello. There's one right there. The Sephardic.
Here.
They're not here, but they come from Spain, North Africa. And then a title was given to the Jewish people that was moving from the Middle Eastern countries, the East, to Israel. That's what Mizrahi means. It means the East. And so the Mizrahi people are those who are coming from more Arab Muslim countries that were Jewish into Israel. And so they've been titled that.
These
Mizrahi.
are my people, but they're not my people in the sense they're from the East, right? And I'm Ashkenazi. But what unites us all? And Jews with views. That's what caught my eye, Chris. And so it doesn't matter if you're Ashkenazi, you're Sephardic, you're Mizrahi. It doesn't matter. If you're Jewish, you got a view.
Well, this is funny because today, what we're going to do with this magazine, we won't do it today because today is we're going into a Jewish holiday here. We're going to talk about that. But we want to talk about Jewish people have had views for a long time. And we're going to go back to the Bible to see the various Jewish views, but we'll leave that for next week.
But let me this is a regular section in this monthly magazine. It might be weekly. I'm not even sure. It might be weekly, but it is a regular feature. So here's the question, Chris, and here's what caught my eye. Okay, we asked 5 accomplished Jews from around the world if you could take only one sefer, a book, this is a book, with you to a desert island, what would it be? He's talking, and by the way, this is a great question today because we're going to be talking about a special feast day in which the Jewish people traditionally say Moses got the law.
Yes.
That's what we're going to talk about. But so
the question is, you got 5 Jewish people here. What book do you take to a desert island?
Now, what if, as a typical Christian who understands the Jewishness of the Bible, you're going to ask a Jewish person, hey, what book would you take if you were on an island? What book would you say, Chris? They would answer.
If you're asking a Christian?
What you're asking a Christian, what a Jewish person would take.
Oh, the Torah.
The Torah. That's me too.
Yep.
So here's Rabbi Iyad Eshel. As difficult as it is to answer this question, after some thought, I felt there was only one answer for me. Now, it was building. Only one answer from the rabbi. The commentary of Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch on the Chumash. So let's translate this. What the rabbi wants is a commentary on the commentary on the Bible.
On the Bible. So 2 commentaries removed.
So he says, this is such a treasure trove of sharp and eloquent insights. Whenever I'm looking for a nice idea to share at Shabbat, preparing a source sheet for an in-depth analysis of the topic, or simply have my own question on the Parsha, that section that I'm looking to answer, when I open up this book, I'm never disappointed. I just thought, wow, Rabbi, you wanted a commentary on the commentary.
Let's unpack that, because what does that say? As we're gonna see several different Jewish people here, you're unpacking this over the next couple weeks. Is that what's going on?
Well, we could talk about it as little or as much as you want.
I didn't know if you were gonna do like another one next week.
We on the same subject.
Yes,
we can. Let's do 2 today.
All right,
and we'll do 3 next week.
All right. So we've got the one rabbi says commentary on the commentary.
That's right.
on the.
That's right.
Hebrew
so now
Bible.
we'll go to Chaya Bina Katz.
Okay,
she's cute.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, very nice. Very, very nice. How can you begin to choose? That's a great answer so far. The book from our immense and rich array of Jewish learning and literature. It's nearly impossible task. But as I reflected, I decided that I would take a Siddur with me to the island. One that includes the Pirkei Avot and the Tehillim.
Okay, so this is, when I heard this, I thought, okay, we're getting somewhere else here.
We're moving on the road.
And if you're going, what's the Siddur? The Siddur is the Jewish prayer book. It's what
it is.
It's and it covers all the prayers for Jewish life.
Holidays, Shabbat, daily prayers. No question. Interesting. And look, there's no wrong answer. That's why they call it Juice with Views. It's just, this is what you think. I'm not being critical. I just have benefited from reading them.
Oh, does it surprise you that the first gentleman would take a commentary on the law? And let me ask you this. This is something I want your opinion on. In our mind, we all say they're going to they should take the Bible. That's what they should take, is the Bible. That's what you'd want to take. But is he saying, "Oh, I'm taking the Bible with me"?
I agree. Yes, he would be saying that because of he would say because of the rich knowledge of the commentaries. You see, Chris, it is fair from a Jewish point of view. There is such a deep respect for those who have insight into the Word. Mm-hmm. We believe that the Holy Spirit teaches us. And we should meditate. That's what the Bible itself tells us. We meditate day and night. And sad as it is, many of us don't. Can I tell you a quick story?
Please.
Okay. Well, after I got saved,
people might have turned their podcast off.
After I got saved, I was in California and I got my first study Bible. I didn't even know what a study Bible was. And they gave me a Schofield Reference Bible. I found it to be amazing, but it was not something I was new to. From a Christian point of view, yes, because Jews invented the study Bible. Mm-hmm. You know that, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
I studied
Rashi.
Rashi was at the bottom of the text is all the commentary. And to be quite honest, very observant Jews often respect the interpretation more than the actual text because they have such high regard for the scholarship that they're saying, I could never come up with anything that they have, and I've learned so much. So I remember the study Bible. So now I'm going to Bible college in Philadelphia, and I had to do my first paper. I can't tell you, I don't remember what it was, but I now had to go to the library, and I'm doing research, and I know that the professor said, we want you to dig in the text for yourself. So as I'm walking in the library, students who've been, I'm a freshman. Actually, it was a 2-year program. So I'm there first time in the library, and what do I see? I see students with the commentary right in front of them, and they're checking the Bible to see if it's true. And I said, I'm at home.
Yeah.
This is what I was raised with.
Christians aren't that far off from when it comes to the way that they rely on the commentary.
It's true. It's funny. And sometimes we do, now that we have the internet, We just say, hey, I don't know what. So you type in the verse and you get 65 different people who will tell you what they think it is. We do it all the time. So I'm not critical, but it is humorous to me, Jews with views.
Yeah, 100%. And then I did respect the Siddur as well. That was a good one.
So you want to hold off the next three till next week?
I'm game for it, but yeah, let's hold off because
we got time constraint. That Ben, he keeps talking.
I'm kind of curious though. Like, what do you guys think about bringing like a desert survival book to the island though? Because I mean, as a Christian, yeah, my first answer would be the Bible, but I'm kind of surprised, at least as far as that we've heard, that no one's like, oh yeah, I would bring a book that helps me survive here.
That's a good one. I can't argue with that.
Almost no one does that. Usually in Christendom, from pastors, I've heard different messages. They would say something like this: if I could only take one book from the Bible and could only have that on an island, then they'll tell you the book that they cherish. But it's a biblical book. You're pretty practical, Ben. You're saying, you know what? I could pray to the Lord. I know he could help me, but I could ensure, at least using natural resources with an expert helping me to survive here so that I could worship him once I'm fine.
If I memorize enough like verses and stuff and get the Bible like, up here, I mean, we hide the word in our heart.
This guy.
And then I got the survival book here. It's like, I'm all set.
He's way more ahead of me than I was when I was his age. He's got his head on straight. All right, we're turning to Leviticus 23, Steve. It was for the radio, for the FOI Today radio program, Steve Conover put me together with a contact for a Israeli nonprofit to interview them for the radio. And so I'm emailing this guy to set up a radio interview, and he goes...
And he's not home.
Oh, well, he goes, I'm going to have to check back with you later on because we're going into holiday. And I'm going into a holiday? Oh,
Shavuot.
Exactly. So Leviticus 23... mentions the Feast of Weeks, which is very important.
Shavuot.
Yeah, Shavuot. That's what it means.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And so Leviticus 23, starting in 15, says this, verse 15, from the day after the Sabbath, the day you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, count off 7 full weeks. Count off 50 days up to the day after the 7th Sabbath. Then present an offering of new grain to the Lord. And wherever you live, bring 2 loaves made of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour baked with yeast, and wave offerings of first fruits to the Lord. Present with this bread 7 male lambs, each a year old and without defect, 1 bull and 2 rams. They will be a burnt offering to the Lord, together with their grain offerings and drink offerings, a food offering, and aroma pleasing to the Lord. Then sacrifice 1 male goat for a sin offering, 2 lambs for each a year old for a fellowship offering. The priest is to wave 2 lambs before the Lord as a wave offering, together with the bread and the first fruits. They are a sacred offering to the Lord for the priest. On the same day, you are to proclaim a sacred assembly and do no regular work. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come wherever you live. And when you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap every very edge of your field or gather and gleaning of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and for the foreigners residing among you. I am the Lord your God.
Sounds like a barbecue, Chris.
Yeah, that's exactly.
There's a big barbecue.
This is an important celebration for the Jewish people. There's a lot of layers. Like, I'm hoping maybe we can develop.
There's math involved too, which doesn't make me happy.
Yeah, no, there's math involved.
You got to count to 50.
They got to count to 50. You got to get, there's a certain date to this. It's connected to another date. If you notice, there are several different offerings that are given. The burnt offering, the fellowship offering, the sin offering. All of those are mentioned in Leviticus chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All of them give us the full picture of really every aspect of offering, grain offerings, all of it's present. Every offering has to be given during this harvest. It's a harvest festival counted 50 days from Passover.
In fact, Chris, growing up, Shavuot was important in the sense we had to learn about it, but we combined first fruits. When's first fruits? That's the third one. Mm-hmm. We have Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits. Then you got to count to 50. And then you get to Shavuot, and they both have to do with first fruits.
Yep.
One's wheat and one's barley. And that plays into this whole day plays into how the Jewish people are going to celebrate it. But even more important, God already says, hey, all you scattered around the promised land, Israel, Deuteronomy says, this is one of the days you got to come to Jerusalem.
Yep.
So it's a day that you know for sure during the time of the law when the temple stood that men from all over the land came to Jerusalem.
And you might go, well, I didn't hear that they have to go to Jerusalem. It doesn't mention Jerusalem, but it mentions the sacrifices that needed to be offered, which could only be done in one of two places. The tabernacle in Leviticus, and eventually the place of God's choosing that Deuteronomy talks about, which would be the temple that Solomon would build, where the sacrifices would be given. So people could celebrate first fruits from anywhere. They could celebrate, what's another I guess technically Yom Kippur, it wasn't a requirement to come in.
There are only 3 that are required.
That's right. And that is Passover,
Yep.
Feast
And
Shavuot,
Tabernacles.
and the Feast of Tabernacles. You're required to be present.
Deuteronomy 16:16.
Right. Explains that. And so you have Jewish people from all over the world that are coming in to Jerusalem.
And that's going to be very important in the providence and sovereignty of God. It's so interesting that this was real in its time. It's exclusive at this time, but as time goes on, God's going to use that for another purpose. The same holiday, the same people, Jewish people coming from all over to accomplish his purpose.
I also love this, is that all those sacrifices are important. The burnt offering sacrifice is a reminder of that kind of really the early, before there was a tabernacle, people were offering sacrifices all the time, and they would offer a burnt offering. You take that offering and you put it on the altar, and the whole thing goes up to God. It's all dedicated to the Lord. And that could cover a multitude of, no pun intended, a multitude of sins, or it could cover joy, or it could cover fellowship. It covered a lot of things. Then you have a fellowship offering, which is actually an opportunity for you to eat with the priests. You would eat with the priests. You would eat with family. The meat from the offering didn't all go up to the Lord. It would be shared among one another. And then you had a sin offering. Now that one, a portion would go to the priest, and then a portion would go to the Lord to atone for unintentional sins that you might have done since Yom Kippur.
Chris, so, it would be pretty bloody.
Big time.
Big time bloody. And the lesson of just observing what's going on, in Judaism and in Christianity, the idea of worshiping with your family, when you're real little, you don't know what's going on. When our kids were little, you probably did that when your kids were little. You brought crayons and coloring books and all kind. Never in a synagogue. That never happened growing up.
Oh, really?
Never, under no circumstances. But the idea of bringing kids who don't know what's going on and orienting them to worship, even though they might not have any idea, that you'll hear testimony. I was raised in a Christian home, and part of that revolved around being at church on certain days, doing certain things. I don't know if you want to comment on that, Ben, but there's a time you didn't know what was going on, but you knew Sunday morning, I know where I'm going. Maybe if it was Wednesday and or Bible study week or whatever, you knew this was a regular thing in your house.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a period of time where I thought it was the most boring thing in the world. Like, I still loved God and I still loved Sunday school, but like if I go to the main service, then I'm just like, oh, what is...
Did you go to a Christian school?
I started in a Christian school up until second grade, and then I was homeschooled. So basically was at a Christian school at home. But yeah, there was like a period of time, like I kind of said, it was around junior high when I was starting to make my faith my own. And part of that was starting to understand what was going on and what the pastor was actually saying. And now I have a deeper appreciation for when he references like the original Greek language or the Hebrew language or things like that to kind of help me have a deeper understanding of what is actually being said in the Bible. But yeah, I mean, there is... I was expected to be there every Sunday morning. Like there was a couple of times where my parents would let me like sit there and like draw something with a pencil, but outside of that, I usually try to pay attention.
I lived on draw. I mean, you'd wear that paper out. You'd get the connections card or the membership, whatever the little card is. Say hi.
Start a whole universe on there,
like just drawing away. But what's funny is my kids they go like this. We go to Christian school. That's like church 5 days a week. And do I have to go back on Sunday? Yes, you have to go back on Sunday. But it's that mentality. that you were just mentioning?
Chris, I was at a church, and they told me, this was a few years ago, and they said, we want to do it the Jewish way. We don't want to have our kids going off to a Sunday school. We want to bring them in and worship together. And so, there was no Sunday school. There was no nursery. There was nothing. I mean, there was something, a building, and you walked in, and everybody participated. I came back a year later, and it was, I said, "Wait, what happened?" It didn't work.
Yeah. Good try.
They tried.
Valiant effort.
Yeah, they couldn't do it.
No nursery. Man, that sounds terrible.
Oh, don't get me started. So Leviticus 23 sets us up. You have to be in Jerusalem. It is a festival that's connected to a harvest, like we mentioned. When you talk about these festivals that you're required to be in Jerusalem, oftentimes they're connected to harvests that are going on in the land. And so you're looking at a barley harvest right now, but they're going to commingle certain things together as well, which is going to play out in Acts chapter 2 when we get there. But another significant moment of this festival for the Jewish people is understanding it's also coupled with the day Moses received the law.
That's the traditional teaching, and that's the thing that they highlight. It's not highlighted.
It's not here in Leviticus 23.
It is in Leviticus 23 is talking about the sacrifices. Moses isn't talked about at all in here because this is the temple standing. So in Hebrew class, Hebrew school, Sunday school, where I learned, they mention that, but they go heavy on Moses received the law. This is when Moses received the law, the Torah. And it's not funny. This is serious stuff. The Torah is the most important thing. And we now have received the law. We are not the same. In fact, we at Mount Sinai, when Moses went up and came down, we said yes. We said yes to the law. We said yes to God. And we have the most precious thing. So, in fact, many of the traditions on Shavuot revolve around that. For instance, they eat dairy.
They eat dairy?
Dairy, you must eat dairy on Shavuot. Why? Well, there's different traditions. But the main tradition is before we had no kosher laws. Now Moses goes up, he gets the law, and he brings it down. And now we find out, we've been eating meat with dairy, and we didn't kill our cows the right way. So they just got oriented to kosher laws. They now eat dairy to make sure that it's kosher, obviously. So that's you always have dairy on Shavuot. You read the book of Ruth.
Are you talking about like when you wake up in the morning, you have yourself a glass of milk kind of dairy, or what does that look like?
Oh, no. You can have blintzes. You could have potatoes. No meat.
No meat.
So
right.
I don't know. What's a good dairy? Cottage cheese is big. I don't know. Eggs are parve, so you could have eggs. It's just no meat. It's dairy. Usually, in my home, we always had blintzes. You know what a blintz is?
Yeah.
Well, tell them what a blintz is.
Well, isn't it Steve filled? Isn't it cheese filled?
It could be. It could have blueberries, strawberries, blackberries.
Filled in like a pastry.
Right, a pastry. Yeah. Or potatoes. A blintz is kind of like I guess it's like a burrito, a Jewish burrito. I guess that's what comes to mind. It's folded. It's a folded kind of pastry, but it's stuffed with different kinds of things.
I didn't know you could get blueberry and all. I thought it was cheese. Oh yeah, there's mostly cheeses.
No question, but there are all kinds of blintzes.
That's so in Israel they call them berekas, which is a Russian word. I don't know if that's a Russian word for blitz or whatever. I could be totally wrong, but it's a pastry, and it's stuffed in the middle. Is cheap. They have pizza ones. They have dairy ones. They
get creative.
Oh yeah, and they're
back
amazing.
In my day, they weren't that creative. You have a little cheese, you have potatoes, another fruit, and zygazin.
Well, okay, so the law becomes important. Did they also? This is just a question I have. Did they also inaugurate new Torahs on Shavuot? Like if they have a new Torah they're bringing, would they do it on the day?
That would certainly be appropriate. I can't recall.
Because I've seen what they do. It's amazing what Jewish people do when there's a new Torah.
Oh,
I've never seen anything
an
like
old
it.
Torah. Anytime you bring out Chris, when they go to the bema and open the ark, the person who opens it's a drama. It's a drama. The congregation stands. You got the rabbi or cantor or whoever is doing it. They stand in front of the ark on the bema, and now some Reform synagogues actually you press a button, and the curtain opens, and the wood opens like this. Orthodox synagogues.
That's electric, huh? You can't do that.
You can if you're Reform, you can, but not if you're Orthodox. So, but anyway, it opens up. Then the person will pick up the Torah by the bottom scrolls, and while his back is to hold up the Torah, and the people are looking. Then he'll turn it around, and then he turns the Torah scroll around, so it's decorated with little bells and velvet, and now he's going to walk. He puts it and cradles it and begins to walk with the Torah. People rush up and they with their tallis and they kiss the tallis and then put it on the Torah scroll. We love the Torah, the Word of God. He then places it in a rack, takes off. People are still standing. Takes it off. And then holds it up again, and then unrolls the scroll, and then takes a yad, a silver yad. You never touch the Bible, the Torah scroll, with your hands. Your hands are dirty. I don't care. There's dirt in between the lines. You never touch it. You use a yad, and you read the text.
Yad means hand, and it's like a little tiny hand with a pointer finger.
Yeah, that's right. It looks like that.
Yeah.
And a silver pointer. So, no, it's dramatic. This is important. What's really funny, and I was guilty of as well, I was raised that way. We love the Torah. We dance around the Torah. Simchat Torah. Yeah, celebrate the Torah. And at home, this book was given to me when I was in just ninth grade. This was given to me. Presented and told by the president, read this. So what did I do? I put it in the top drawer I keep my underwear and never saw it again for several years. You ask most Jewish people if they have a Bible. They probably do. Sometimes they mistake it for their siddur. But they would say they do. And do you read it? No. Now, unfortunately, you ask some Christians, do you have I have many Bibles. A Christian will say, how often do you read it? At church on Sunday. So we're all guilty again.
Yes.
But there is no doubt about it that Judaism embraces the love of the Word. I was taught the love of the Word, and Shavuot is one of those primary areas where that's when it all began.
One time I was in Israel and I saw this car, and it had the 10 Commandments kind of like on the top of the car, and then it had this casing, and the thing was lighting up, and there was music blaring, and it was like a party on wheels, and people were following it. And I said, "What is that thing?" And they said, "Oh, that's a new Torah," and it was like a line of cars following a Torah scroll in a car as it's driving, and they're inaugurating, that's
Chris,
going to a synagogue.
How long would it take to copy? That Torah is hand copied.
Yeah.
It's hand copied. It takes, I don't know how long for a scribe Torahs are super expensive. It's all hand done.
Yep.
It's an amazing feat.
A little plug for FOI Equip, because this September 5th, we're going to have Rabbi Shmuel Bowman talking about the life of a Torah scribe.
That's going to be fantastic.
That's right. So he's actually an ordained Torah rabbi who makes sure all the Torahs and the mezuzahs
got to make sure
kosher.
They're kosher.
Yep.
Oh, that's huge.
Yep.
Huge. But what is the significance now, Chris, of Shavuot? So why are we spending time on the Jew and the Gentile podcast? What does it have to do with Christianity?
Yeah. So again, this is why we teach the Bible from a Jewish perspective, because there's a moment in early church history. We're talking moments after Acts chapter 1 happens and Jesus ascends into heaven, and he says, wait for the coming of the Holy Spirit. And so I'm going to go to Acts chapter 2, and this amazing thing happens because Jesus is taken up into heaven. He ascends, And then all of a sudden, it says in Acts chapter 2, when the day of Pentecost came, they were all gathered together in one place. So we've got a date. We've got an understanding. Now, if you're a Jewish person and you're reading this, you know exactly what's going on.
Even if you're bad in math, you know it's 50 days past Passover.
That's right. And so we know Passover is when Jesus died and resurrected. It all happened on that weekend.
First fruits. He was our first fruits.
The first fruits of the resurrection.
First fruits, whether it was Shavuot, which was for the barley, but the wheat first fruits meant if you offered the first of the harvest to the Lord, you knew that more would follow. Jesus is our first fruits. He rose from the dead and up to heaven. He's our first fruits. That means more to follow.
More to follow. That's right. And that's why there's a lot of harvest talk in
a lot of harvest talk.
Gospels.
And Chris, who the people gathered? They're gathered from everywhere. Why?
Well, who though? Who are they? You're saying they're gathered from everywhere, but they're one group of people though.
One group of people, but they had been from different places. When this takes place, it's because of Deuteronomy 16:16. There's Jewish people coming all over Israel. This particular group was their Rebbe, which was Jesus. Obviously their Savior, their Messiah. They followed him, but the whole thing takes place as God assembled. Many of them didn't even know that day what would happen to them during the Feast of Shavuot.
That's right. So when they are there, we know exactly the time now. We're talking 50 days after the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. It's Shavuot, and Jewish people from all over the known world at that time are flocking to Jerusalem, and that's what they're there for. They're there for Pentecost.
Yep.
And it says this: when the day of Pentecost came, they were together in one place, and suddenly a sound like a blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. They saw that it seemed to be tongues of fire that separated them and came to rest on each of them. All of them were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit enabled them. Now there were staying in Jerusalem God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. And when they heard this sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment because each one heard their own language being spoken. Utterly amazed, they asked, "Aren't all these who are speaking Galileans? Then how is it that each of us hears them in our native language? Parthians, Medes, and Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, Egypt, and other parts of Libya near Cyrene."
Better you pronouncing them than me. You're doing great, Chris.
Thank you, sir. Visitors from Rome, both Jews and converts to Judaism, Cretans and Arabs. We hear them declaring the wonders of God in our tongues. Amazed and perplexed, they ask one another, "What does this mean?" So really the amazing thing is they're saying diaspora Jews that are living all around the world come back to Jerusalem for this celebration. And now this is an opportunity. You don't realize how much this will impact things because
it's huge.
They receive the Holy Spirit, which means they get saved. They come to know Jesus as their Messiah. They're not going to stay in Jerusalem.
They're going to go home.
They're going to go home. They're going to go to Rome. They're going to go to Parthian, which is above Persia. They're going to go back to where modern day Iran is and Iraq, and back to Greece, and back to Turkey, and all the other places, Egypt and southern Africa. They're going back home, and they're going to bring the message of the gospel with them, the good news that the Messiah has come. And so really,
and they heard the gospel from Hebrew speakers, or if you want to say Aramaic speakers, whatever their native tongue was, it wasn't theirs. They heard it in their language.
That's right.
That it amazed them, and the truth that they heard changed their life. So, Chris, the Torah changed the lives of Jewish people. Changed their lives. They didn't understand what kosher laws were and the various feasts that would come. The 10 Commandments we talk about. They now had a blueprint for living. Well, Chris, God used Shavuot to change the lives of Jewish people again. The first church, all Jewish. There were no Gentiles here. They were coming for Shavuot, and now the Holy Spirit baptize them. That is, they are now sealed with the Holy Spirit, and they are changed. And by the way, Ben, at a young age, at 4 years old, was changed when the Holy Spirit sealed himself in Ben through Christ's death. Mm-hmm. You were changed. I was changed. It doesn't matter how old you are or young you are. When you receive Christ, you become a new creature. And so as the Jews received the law and celebrated the law because it changed them, and it did, even more so on Shavuot, through the Spirit of God, are we changed. It's an amazing, they're simpatico. You know, they go together.
All right, Steve, I think, have we exhausted Pentecost?
No, but if there is a great way to not even exhaust it, because the Word of God is living, but Bruce Scott comes close. Yes. He does come close. And
that's who I was just texting.
Oh, okay. You were just texting him because Bruce Scott wrote a book on the feasts of Israel. And he also throws in as a bonus what we call minor holidays, other Jewish holidays that are celebrated. And so I encourage our listeners to go to our website, which is
foiequip.org.
And, well, that's not how they'll get
So wait, you want the book?
I'm thinking of the book.
Oh, you got to go to foi.org and you go to the store page.
That's right. You got to go to the store page. We're driving people crazy with all these links.
I try to keep it at one place.
Well, go to foiequip.org. That's where you'll get our stuff.
Actually, there's a link at the top of foiequip.org that will take you to the FOI homepage.
Well, then tell them how to do that afresh. Do it again.
All right, let's rewind, okay? Let's go back to the beginning here. If you go to foiequip.org, there's a link at the top that says foi.org, our homepage for our organization. Boom, you click on that, you'll go right to our store, and you can get Bruce Scott's book on the Feast of Israel.
And if you do, you will become an expert. By the way, that segue is great. Bruce Scott is the one who has put together bridges. And Chris, we just finished our first 9 weeks and it's full 9 weeks of bridges, but we're running 2 more bridges programs
this year.
So the first one's done. How many graduates did we have?
I think we have more than 25 Bridges graduates.
And they're not just in the United States or Canada.
No, we got a guy in Ethiopia that's signing people up like crazy right now.
He's signing people up in Ethiopia.
And he's legit. He's graduated from it. He's trying to sign up pastors and missionaries and Bible college students to take Bridges. His name's Tessima. He's a great guy. And so,
how do people find out about Bridges?
Yeah, you can just go to actually foiequip.org, and boom, you're going to see Bridges.
It's your one-stop shopping center for mostly free stuff.
100.
Or maybe, is it exclusively free or mostly free?
No, some things might cost you a couple bucks. But
okay.
Yeah, you know. But come on, throw me a bone here. Most things are free. All right, so Steve, we're running out of time fast.
Of course,
but we've got some important news here. Steve, this one got me big time because I want to talk about something with you. Benny Gantz. You've met Benny Gantz.
I met Benny Gantz.
He's the Saul of the Bible, the tall, handsome, politician.
That guy is 6 feet 8 inches tall.
When he walks around Israelis, he's a head above everybody else.
During the time of the elections, our Canadian trip to Israel, our tour was going on, and we happened to stop where he was campaigning, and I told several of our people, "Hey, Benny Gantz is here," so I shook hands with him.
If that's what you did, I was jumping. I would be like this.
And he's a great guy. He was very nice for the 30 seconds I was with him.
I'd also like to rewind, because sometimes what we can do is we can shove our American spectrum of politic into the Israeli spectrum of politic, our conservative, liberal, our extremes from progressives to what you would call right wing, whatever it is. We like to take our philosophy, our way of thinking, and shove it into other people's politics. When we talk about Benny Gantz, I would actually argue Benny Gantz and Benjamin Netanyahu probably have a lot more in common than disagreements. And so when Benny Gantz resigns, he's resigned from the wartime government, and so
he's on the it's not called a council. It's called the war.
Yeah, the wartime council or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's a unity government, which means the government after October 7th decided we're going to put our politics aside and come together.
War cabinet.
The war cabinet, yeah. And so Benny Gantz is on the opposition against Netanyahu, even though, like I said, they probably share more in common.
No, that's against. He's not against what Netanyahu believes in a general sense. They're on the same page, but he's against. They're against each other. They're political rivals.
They're political rivals. Which this is my question for you. He steps down from this, signaling something. In my now, it's not brought out much in this, and because number one, it says this in the. I think this is Financial Times. Says the centrist former general calls for the early elections and accuses Netanyahu of mismanaging war against Hamas. So he's calling for elections by stepping down. He's calling for elections
during war. This is during war. Yep.
Okay. So is he positioning himself? Because he already ran for prime minister, I think maybe once or twice. Is he positioning himself to run for prime minister by doing this? Is that something he's trying?
I think he thinks so. But there's we're going to have this in the show notes, a link in the show notes. Mm-hmm. It says, however, opposition politicians welcomed Gantz's resignation, which was accompanied by that of his ally, Gadi Eisenkot, who also joined the emergency government and a war cabinet in the wake of Hamas attack. It's time. Here's the quote, Chris. It's time to replace this extremist and failing government with one that will restore security for the people of Israel, bring the hostages home, rebuild the economy, restore Israel's international standing, Yair Lapid, head of the opposition group, wrote. In other words, if you go with Yair's, he's going to do everything but burp your baby.
Yeah.
Right? Listen to what he promises.
I know. I see it.
It's time to replace this government. We're going to bring the hostages home, rebuild the economy, restore international standing just by voting for him. I got news for you. I'm not entering their politics, but Chris, that's like saying, and Ben, there is no one believes that simply by a new government everything is Shangri-La. If he just said we'll make things better than the way things have been going, he's saying. It's going to be great if we're doing everything.
And when you look at statistics on whether or not Israelis think who is the better one to lead this war right now, I do think the statistics were showing that they still trust Netanyahu to get the job done.
The fact is, what's happening in Israel, they regard their politicians in a low way. They know that's the only way to make the government work. It's the military that ranks very, very high in terms of admiration. The security of the nation, they know it revolves around their military. They have to vote for somebody. And of the people right now who they would trust, of the least of who they trust, it would be Netanyahu.
The thing that's interesting is the moment Benny Gantz steps down, another guy named Itamar Ben Gvir, who is actually a very right-wing.
He's further right.
Yeah, he's very religious. Very religious.
Yeah,
he actually doesn't like Christians that much. Just very, he was voted into power. People don't like him that much, and but he's saying, well, if Benny Gantz is gone, put me in that war cabinet. And that's an interesting thing because I don't think he served in the military, if I remember correctly. And if you don't serve in the military because he's religious, you kind of get like why should we let you in our war cabinet if you've never served before? I have to double check if that's true or not.
Chris, that's the biggest issue right now. Anyway, the biggest issue is the Supreme Court that's going to rule on the inactivity or the waiving of the mandate for 18-year-olds to come into and serve the military. They waive it for those who are studying at yeshiva. And there's like 300,000 of them, and they're short on men and women. They need more people because, Chris, it seems as though this morning, as we talked to Menno Kalisher during our chapel service, he described the bombing from the north that Israel's receiving from Lebanon. Hezbollah is bombing them like crazy all day. and saying it seems almost inevitable that there'll be a war up north. They need men. They need manpower.
That's right. And that whole thing is interesting because that goes back to David Ben-Gurion. When a lot of the Jewish people that had come from after the Holocaust, I think only 400 in the state of Israel were ultra-Orthodox. And so they said, here's the deal. You go ahead and you pray,
and we'll fight.
We'll fight. And well, now it's an entire nation that's, ultra-Orthodox. Like you said, 300,000 men that should be in the army are not. And it creates a consternation in the country and the Knesset, all of it.
I think it's really, Chris, for our listeners, think about this. If you, at one time in this country, it was mandated, there was a draft. And there has always been a time that you could not avoid the draft, but be a conscientious objector. But during World War II, for instance, in war, unless you were 4F or whatever, could not serve, you were looked down upon. The idea of fighting against Hitler or the Japanese, you weren't looked upon well at all. Think about in Israel. There's parents are sending multiple kids, however many they have when they turn 18, and many of them aren't coming home. And you walk to the wall, the Western Wall, and there's hundreds, there's thousands of young men, and they're not going. There's something unfair about it. I have to pay the price for you.
Yep.
And they'd say, we're praying.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
No, I know.
We met people who don't like that at all, Chris.
No, not at all. We do want to, before we have to scoot and get to our Yiddish word, I just want to do this one right here.
Sure.
All right, so this is a big one because you probably heard about this on the news, but Operation Arnon, all the details about the heroic operation that freed 4 Israeli hostages from the heart of Gaza. This was a cooperation between Shin Bet and the IDF and the police forces with intelligence.
Even some American intelligence. They went in. These 4 Israeli hostages were being kept in civilian homes. I even read one article that said one of the homes, the person that lived in the home was a journalist for Al Jazeera. Yep. I read the same thing.
And so, hundreds of Israeli Navy, Air Force, ground, and commando forces were involved in this. And as a result, the 4 Israeli hostages were freed. Steve,
but it cost.
It cost.
It cost.
Yes. Go ahead. Tell us.
It's called Operation Arnon because Arnon, I don't have his last name in front of me. I only have the front page here. But Arnon was the leader of his particular group that went in. There were multitudes of groups, but he was one of the platoon leaders, and he died. He was injured, flown to a hospital. He died in Israel in a hospital. But, Chris, this was during the day, broad daylight, simultaneous rescue. 3 in one building, 200 meters apart was another building where the other hostage was, and they did it at the same time. Their vehicles, it almost was like Black Hawk Down. It was their vehicles got stuck 2 different times. When they managed to get the hostages, they build a human shield, encircle them completely around and walk and run. They were in the vehicle. They're shooting not just bullets, rockets at them. RPGs at them. And only, Arnon was the only one who died. They managed to get out. They had a helicopter ready, but it was, as one journalist described, it was a hairbreadth away of being a failure. But by God's grace, they were rescued. And it's amazing. I can't even imagine, Chris. We and Ben went to the movie. Commandant Shadow, and we talked about the scars of that child of Rudolf Hess, being raised in that, not even remembering anything about it. Chris, I can't imagine what those hostages who are freed, how are they going to live the rest of their life? They're going to have to deal with I can't even imagine, let alone the ones that are still alive. that they say there are about 100, and about 40 of them they think are dead anyway.
And, all this was coupled. That's when Benny Gantz was going to announce that he was stepping down, which was fast. I mean, you have to think, is now a good time to do this?
And no, he was wise. I think what he did was really good.
It was supposed to happen, but that's when Operation Arnon happened, and they were able to rescue the 4 hostages. So he said, I'm going to postpone my message.
He took the attention away from himself and allowed it to celebrate the coming home of the. I thought that was good. I thought that was really good.
This should be a time for the nation to unify around getting the hostages home. And so we're going to continue to pray for Israel and the Jewish people, the hostages, and that not only Hamas will be destroyed, and that a solution will be brought that will establish some sort of peace in this time that Israel's dealing with multiple fronts that they're dealing with: Gaza, Lebanon, West Bank, Yemenis, you name it. They're dealing with a lot of issues, and so we're going to keep praying for them, Steve.
Ben's had to deal with multiple fronts. He looks to you. He looks to me. He's going like a ping
Fighting
pong.
a war on 2 fronts here.
All right. On that note, it's the Yiddish word of the day. The Yiddish word of the day, Steve. I don't even know what you're doing. Go for it.
The word is milchig. Milchig.
Oh, that's right, because we drink dairy today.
You could drink dairy, you could eat dairy, but it's fleischig is meat in Yiddish. Milchig is dairy.
How do you say that? What's the Yiddish? It's the milk.
Milchig.
No, but isn't there like a phrase that you say? It's the milchig and the flake. What do you say?
Well, my grandmother used to have 2 sets of silverware. The silverware for the meat, the fleischig, and the silverware for the dairy. And when I was little, I mixed them up. Oh, you mixed up the milchig with the fleischig, and now I gotta take a fire and kosher them, and ay.
All right, well, listen, in honor of Pentecost, why don't you do us a favor, everybody? Go get yourself, a good donut?
A blintz.
A blintz. Get yourself a blintz, and remember the Jew and Gentile podcast. Hey, don't forget, too, that you can also go and get a mug on a mug.
Don't be such a cheapskate. Give us a donation of $10, and we'll lose money on shipping.
Oh, I love it, everybody. That's right, mug on a mug. Go to foiequip.org. There you can connect with us, sign up, take one of our classes, become an equipper, join us for bridges, go on Encounter, go to Israel with us. Steve,
do something.
Do something. We're giving you everything. No, hey, thank you so much for being a part of the Jew and Gentile podcast. We love all of our listeners, all 7 of you. And to you, Ben, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor.
Oh, it was great. Hey, we'll see you next week.